Welcome back, friends. Time for another episode of Commander Dive. Today we're doing another spooky commander from Duskmourn. It's Arabella, the Abandoned Doll. Let's get into it. My name is Adam, and as always, this is Commander Tax. So what is Arabella, Abandoned Doll? Well, she's a new commander. It's a Lord of the Ground, just one red and a white legendary artifact creature toy. It's a 1/3, and it says whenever Arabella Abandoned Doll attacks, it deals X damage to each opponent, and you gain X life, where X is the number of creatures you control with power 2 or less. So most people are just going to do a token deck with this, and we are going to do tokens, but we're going to do a little bit of a spin on it. We're going to do a lot more direct damage. So a lot of the tokens that we want to create are going to be devils, and then we're going to concentrate on that power 2 or less. So we're going to have a lot of cards that care about 2 power, and we're just going to try and do as much direct damage to our opponents as we can. So let's get into our first category here, which is going to be Burn. Brings us to our first card here is a Baz Mirror. It's a red and a white human assassin from Assassin's Creed. It's a 2/2, and whenever this or another non-token historic permanent enters the battlefield, you deal 1 damage to each opponent and you gain 1 life. Well, what's a historic? A historic is going to be legendaries, artifacts, or sagas. This deck's going to have a lot of legendaries, so it's going to be able to do a lot of ping damage, especially if you can get it out early. Our next card is Agate Instigator. This is a 1 and a red, and it's got the offspring. So for 2 red and 2 generic, you can get 2 of these. One of them will be a 1/1. That's how offspring works. And whenever another creature you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. So you get both these out. It can be really good, especially as we get into some of these other cards. Now we have the Ping God here. Perforos, God of the Forge, is 3 and a red. Indestructible as long as your devotion red is less than 5. Perforos isn't a creature, just an enchantment. And then whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 2 damage. So really good card, and then you can pay 2 in a red, and everything gets +1/+0. Since we're going to have a lot of tokens as well as a lot of 2-cost creatures, this is going to be really valuable because you think if you have, let's say, 10 damage on the board, this doubles it. You do it twice, it triples it, so you're talking 20, 30 damage. Really valuable because it does all creatures, and probably something that gets overlooked on this card sometimes. All right, now we have a new card from Duskmourn. It's 2 red. Human Assassin. It's a 2/2, and it has first strike during your turn. And then whenever an opponent draws a card, it deals 1 damage to them. So it keeps everybody honest and keeps them from drawing too many cards. I believe this is an homage to Pinhead. Just a really cool card, something really different that we haven't seen in red for a while. Now we have our 2 triplers, right? So we're going to put City on Fire and Fiery Emancipation in this deck. Both of these are going to triple the damage that we deal with Pinhead and Perforos. So with Perforos, every time you play a creature, you're dealing 6 damage. Pinhead, it'd be every time they draw a card, it deals 3 damage. Really good. It forces them to deal with our board state. And then with Arabella, that's even better. So if we had 5 creatures, rather than doing 5 damage, you're doing 15. This is going to speed up the clock and allow us to win the game really quickly, unless somebody deals with what we got going on. That's the end of that category. Let's move on to our next one. Tokens. All right, so tokens is a really popular strategy in Commander. So I tried to pick some token generators, maybe that you haven't seen. You can substitute any of these, but I just thought these would be some good ones to feature in this, because they kind of fit our theme and they're a little bit different. So first up, we have Zariel, Archduke of Avernus. This is 2 and 2 red pips. It's a planeswalker, and her +0 ability is to create a 1/1 red devil creature with, when this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. So again, dealing direct damage to our opponent, fitting that sub-theme of what we're trying to do here. Her +1 is you can give all creatures +1/+0 and haste until end of turn. So again, this is going to double our damage. Really good in this deck. And her -6 is you get an emblem with, at the end of your first combat phase on your turn, untap target creature you control, Arabella. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. So you get to attack with Arabella twice, which is going to be really awesome because her damage is an attack trigger, and it's going to double up the amount that she does. It may just be a finisher if you can keep this on the board for just, 2 turns, then you're going to be able to do that and maybe win the game. Next up, we have a new Bloomburrow card, just a really fun token generator. This is Jacked Rabbit. It's X, a 1, and a white. Ravenous. This creature enters with X 1/1 counters on it. If X is 5 or more, draw a card. When it attacks, you create a number of 1/1 white rabbit creature tokens equal to this creature's power. Really awesome card for if you can keep it on the board to create a whole bunch of 1/1 rabbits. All right, moving on. Now we have Alenda's Hierophant. This was from Ixalan. This is 2 and a white Vampire Cleric. It's got flying, and it says whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on Alenda. So basically, anytime you attack with Arabella or you use a spell that gives you life, she gets a 1/1 counter. And then when she dies, you create X 1/1 vampire creatures, where X is this creature's power. Oh, and they have lifelink as well. Really great creature for this deck because it synergizes really well. A really fun card that you see a lot of times in vampire decks, but works really well in this strategy as well. All right, now we have Spawn Gain Commander. This is 3 and 2 red pips from MH3, Eldrazi Goblin, great creature type. Whenever you cast a spell, you create 3/0/1 Eldrazi Spawn. So this is a 4/1. Creature tokens with sacrifice this creature, add colorless mana. You can then pay 2, where one of them is colorless, and sacrifice an Eldrazi. Spawn Gain Commander deals 2 damage to any target. So you can sacrifice one of these spawn and deal direct damage, again fitting our sub theme. Also a 4/1, which is going to be, because this is a 2/2, if Arabella attacks, there's 5 damage just playing this card and having her on the board. Next up, we have a really fun one, Zerzoth Chaos Rider. This is 2 in a red, Devil, 2/3. Whenever an opponent draws their first card each turn, if it's not their turn, you create a 1/1 red devil. And what does the devil do? Well, it does just what you think. This creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. And then it's got this cool ability here at the bottom. Whenever one or more devils you control attack, he's a devil, so this includes him. One or more players, you and those players each draw a card, then discard a card at random. So a little bit of chaos here, a little bit of fun, and they may have to discard something they really don't want to. This could hurt you just as bad as your opponent, but having a little bit of chaos can be fun in Commander. And that is the end of the tokens category. Let's move on to our next one, which is going to be protection. All right, so with Arabella, because it's an attack trigger, we've got to protect her because we're attacking. If an opponent blocked, she would die, and then you'd have to pay continual commander tax, and she would get more and more expensive. So we really don't want to have to do that. We need to keep her protected. So first card here is Staff of Hermes. It's 2 and a white, and a creature has lifelink, which is awesome. So we're going to double up on our life gain. As long as you have 30 or more life, creature gets +5/+5 and is indestructible. This is really great, but it does also take her out of the equation when calculating the number of creatures that have 2 or less power. So she's not going to get a trigger for herself, but I think it's worth it for what you get. You get indestructible. And then it also has prevent all damage to be dealt to this creature. If for some reason your opponent had Shadow Spear and removed indestructible, they still couldn't deal damage to kill Arabella, which is really awesome. It's just 2 white to equip, a really fun card, and really a different take on an effect that we've seen quite a few times before. Next up, we have a card from Bloomburrow. It's 4 and 2 whites. It's an instant, and it says, gift an extra turn. That's really bad, but you create 4 2/2 birds, so that's going to be 4 damage there because they're 2/2s when it's Arabella, and they have flying. If the gift was promised, all permanents you control phase out, and until your next turn, your life total can't change, and you gain protection from everything. This is a really kind of niche card, but one that I think is really important to have in this deck because it's going to give you that guaranteed turn. When you play this, the only way that they can do anything is that if they act on your turn. If you have something like Grand Abolisher, which this deck probably should have now that I think about it, and you play Perch Protection, like you're going to win the game, right? So if you have the creatures, you have the damage. Let's say you have Fiery Emancipation, you have 10 creatures on board, and you have Arabella, and you play this, like, and then you have Grand Abolisher, like you're going to win. Or Muriel's another one, just where they can't play spells on your turn, you're going to win the game. Really cool card that is just a win con for this deck. All right, now we have Dawn Charm. This is 1 and a white, and it just says prevent all combat damage to be dealt this turn. Regenerate target creature, counter target spell that targets you. So this is choose 1, and it's got some flexibility, but I really like that it prevents all combat damage, so it allows you to get in with Arabella and do a whole bunch of damage. And really with Arabella, what we're looking to do is have one of these protections in our hand and just have 1 or 2 really big turns to win the game. So we're not having a lot of continuous protection, just kind of one-time protection is all we really need. All right, moving on, we have Rem Corrales, Stalwart Slayer. It's 1, a red, and a white human knight, flying haste. If a spell would deal damage to you or another permanent you control, prevent that damage. So having this on the board actually is that continual protection. So having one of these or a couple of these is still good, even though we just, like I said, need 1 or 2 big turns. But just if you want to play Arabella and get some life back, setting up that big turn, having this is going to help you get there as well. So if a spell would deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage +1. So this is going to, in some situations, double our damage. All right, now we have a really fun card. This is an old one. It's just called Reconnaissance. It's 1 white, so a really simple card. And it's got a 0 cost ability that says remove target creature you control from combat and untap it. This allows us to get Arabella's attack trigger, and then we can pay 0 using this card, untap her, take her out of combat, and then we don't have to worry about her being blocked. We just get her attack trigger, and we can move on. Really cool card. That is the end of protection. Let's move on to draw. All right, we're going to get through this category pretty quickly. Everyone is pretty familiar, I think, with a lot of the draw cards, but there are a few in here that are worth mentioning, so I wanted to talk about those. But first up, we have Skull Clamp. This is just a 1-cost artifact, so for all of those direct damage devils, if no one wants to block them, we put this on the board to allow us to kill them and get that direct damage done to our opponents, because it's +1/-1, and then you draw 2 cards on top of it. So you're going to be doing 1 damage directly to someone's face, and then you're going to draw 2 cards. Great card draw engine for a token deck. Now we have Well of Dreams. This is a 4-cost artifact. This is really fun for any life gain deck, and because Arabella is gaining us lots of life, this is going to work really well, because it says whenever you gain life, you can pay X, where X is less than or equal to the amount of life you gained, and then you get to draw X cards. So with Arabella, if we, have 1 card in hand, we need to refill it. You can attack with her. If you have some sort of protection, you play that, right? So now you have 0 cards, you gain 5 life, and you can pay 5 and then draw 5 cards. Really cool effect that is going to keep us going and keep our hands full. All right, next up we have Enduring Innocence. This is a new Duskmourn card. This is a Glimmer. It's 1 and 2 whites, and it's a lifelink 2/1. And then whenever 1 or more creatures you control with power 2 or less enter, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. I really like this card because when it dies, it comes back as an enchantment. So it's a lot like Welcoming Vampire. It does cost 1 more white pip rather than just 2 in a single white. It's 2 white, but we're only in 2 colors. That shouldn't be too hard to do. And so then when this gets removed, it comes back as an enchantment, much harder to remove as an enchantment. So you can get continued effect, and really good card here. Probably better than Welcoming Vampire. We do have Welcoming Vampire in this deck. Having 2 of them is better than 1, but this is actually a better version of that card. All right, now we have Assemble the Players. It's 1 and a white, and it says you can look at the top card of your library at any time, and then once each turn, you may cast a spell with power 2 or less from the top. So this is that 2 or less theme showing its face here. All right, next up we have Mentor of the Meek, 2 and a white. You can pay 1 anytime you play a creature with power 2 or less, and you get to draw a card. Everything else. So for everything else, the first card we have is Season of the Burrow. This is an awesome new Bloom Burrow card. It's 3 and 2 white. I really love the full art on this one, the extended art. I prefer that one over the other one, but you get to choose 5 paws worth of modes. And for 1 paw, you get a 1/1 rabbit. For 2 paws, you exile a target non-land permanent. Its controller draws a card. And for 3 paws, you return target permanent card with a value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with an indestructible counter on it. So the best thing about this is that bottom one, it says mana 3 or less, and then it's indestructible. So we can let Arabella, if we got this in our hand, go to the graveyard, and then we can play this, bring her back, and now she's indestructible. And then so then you do that one, and then you would probably then do just 2 of the ones. So that way you get 2/1/1 rabbits on it. So now you got indestructible, and she's got an additional 2 for her X ability. Really awesome card for that reason. Also, it's got removal on here. If for some reason you already have protection for Arabella, you have that ability just to remove something from the board. Really flexible card, really great in this deck. All right, now we got Recruiter of the Guard. This is a 2 and a white, and this is just a tutor. Lets us go search for a creature with toughness 2 or less. Well, if it's power 2 or less, most likely it is toughness 2 or less. Most of the stuff that we have in here is a 2/2 or 2/1 or whatever, so mostly 2/2s. And then so you get to go search for it, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Really cool tutor ability. Next up, we have Burn Down the House. This is 3 and 2 red pips. You choose one. You can either do 5 damage to each creature, so a great board wipe, but I love that you have the ability to create 3/1/1 devils. Again, dealing that direct damage, kind of a small sub-theme in this is devils, and when they die, they deal 1 damage to any target. They gain haste as well. Having a 3 for 1 card is not bad. I mean, granted, it's 5 mana, so it's not super cost effective, but I just love playing this card. All right, now we have Delny, Streetwise Lookout. This is 2 and a white pip, and it says creatures you control power 2 or less can't be blocked with creatures with power 3 or greater. So this is going to actually guarantee in some situations for Arabella to hit. Really cool card. If an ability of a creature you control with power 2 or less triggers, the ability triggers an additional time. So this is probably the next best card in this deck because Arabella is a 1/3. You're going to double those triggers up. And if you have triple damage, as you can see, this can be really crazy. This is a must kill in this deck, and just love this synergy. All right, now we have Moonshaker Cavalry. It's 5 and 3 white pips. Pretty expensive card. It's a 6/6 flyer, but when it enters, this is a great finisher. It's our Crater Hoof effect for this deck. It says creatures you control gain flying and get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. Well, if we have 10 creatures, well, guess what? We get +10/+10. And that, guys, is the video. We have made it to the end. I appreciate you checking this out. I am currently 10 subscribers away from 100. That's my goal for the end of the month. So if you haven't subscribed, really think about it. I'd really appreciate it. Like and comment. Tell me what you think. Thanks for your time again, and catch you in the next one. Peace.